I sat hunched over a computer screen, rubbing my eyes. It was late. I was tired. Dirty and smelly too. But surprisingly, not in too bad a mood. I was finishing off a computer virus detection program I'd been working on for pretty much most of the last 6 weeks. And now, I was testing it against a brand new virus, provided as a courtesy of the boys at the Department of Defense. This virus had been eluding me for most of the week. But this time I had it. Nailed, dead to the wall. Mine. Roadkill. But as the bar graph on the screen approached 50% with no virus detected, I started getting worried. At 75%, I watched the hot shower I'd been dreaming of for the last 2 days slip away. By 85%, my steak dinner went up in smoke. At 95%, I knew it was beef stroganoff from the vending machine, again, for diner. When it hit 99%, I reached over and shoved the little prick of a system off the desk. Damn, I hate Microsoft. A little background. My name is Jack. Jack Kaskowski. I work for the CIA. Technically, I'm employed by the FBI. I think. I'm not really sure. Things have gotten a bit confusing since 9/11. All this sharing of resources. My specialty is computers. Or, to be blunt, hacking in viruses. I got my start as a smart-ass high school kid who hacked into an ancient federal mainframe. I guess I was but ass lucky. Since I fixed the hole I climbed through, sent them an email explaining how I did, and gave them my phone number in case they had questions, they offered to go easy on me. Well, easy on me was, I should say, would I be more interested in working for them, or would I prefer 20 to life as a crack dealer's bitch? It was an easy choice. I wasn't really out to cause problems. I was more out to let people know how easy it was for me to read the company payroll. So after a proper education at college that actually taught me some very valuable information, believe it or not, I entered the police academy. They bent some rules, since I wasn't really tall enough or heavy enough. From there, I took the quick route to the FBI. Technically, I wasn't an agent. I didn't start at boot camp. But I did get a badge. But not a gun. The real agents referred to me as Barney Fife. Not that I was that bad, but if they'd give me a gun, I'd only get 1 bullet. And I'd have to keep it in my pocket. In the 15 years I'd been here, I'd gotten around to completing most of my basic training. But mostly I play on computers. My last project I'd finished off a month or so ago was designing the ultimate computer virus. You can't detect it. It doesn't erase anything. It doesn't send copies of itself anywhere. You don't see Jack. No one does. But it watches you. Watches you as you type emails. If it detects any words on preordained list of watchwords, it attaches a very small, encrypted data packet to the email. I call it a tagging, after explosive detection particles. Once on the internet, it breaks away from the email and heads off to a collection point. There, we can read which words were typed, where it came from, and where it's headed to. A bigger, more advanced version of the program can even relay information on what routers the email took until the tagging split off. It was a masterpiece. No one could break it. My reward was to go back and try and break someone else's virus. So no one could get this shit into our systems. Which basically was a good idea. By switching back and forth like this, it kept us sharp. You broke in, now find the guy who's following your tracks. We'd all been at this pretty much night and day, since 9/11. There were few days off. Vacation was almost unheard of. Just do better, faster, and make damn sure it worked. So I just kicked a $10,000 computer off my desk because I was pissed. What else could go wrong? Well, for starters, my supervisor walked in. Nice, very nice, Cask. That'll cost you a few pizzas. Gary was tough, but he understood the frustration we were all feeling. I'd love to ream your ass over that, but I have not got the strength, and you haven't got the time. He tossed a file on my desk, knocking over a half-dozen stale paper coffee cups. You got an appointment with the big boys in Langley. Big boys, I thought, great. Now who've I pissed off? He must have read the expression on my face. No, really. The top brass want to chat with you. And since this didn't come with a meter maid to haul you downtown, I assume you're not busted. I picked up the file and opened it. Closing the door behind him as he left, Gary said, "They want you DC tomorrow at 10. Grab a shower, you stink." Great, I thought. He's got 17 years of experience, management material, and the most he can deduce is I stink. I feel safer already. There wasn't much in the file. Where to go, when to get there, and a one-way airline ticket. What was surprising was the high-level security stamp on the file. I didn't see anything important inside. Oh well, I'm sure I'd find out by about 2 minutes after 10 tomorrow morning. I went home, showered and shaved. Dressed in a casual suit and packed a nice one. I always dress nice on flights. Never know when you're gonna find a police groupie. After all, I did have the badge. Man, I got some great pussy out of that badge. I figured they'd have to retire my badge number for that reason alone. The airport was no picnic. Regardless of what you might think, the only privilege I get is I can carry a gun if I had one. Which I don't. Which pissed off the plane's crew. They figured if they had to put up with me, at least I could keep an eye on the cabin. One of the stewardesses was pretty cute. I managed to strike up a conversation with her. But eventually it petered out. So I grabbed as much sleep as I could. We landed around daybreak at Dulles. There was a driver waiting for me. I tried to start a conversation once or twice, but he was tight-lipped. It was a real quiet trip. I wondered if he was ordered to keep his mouth shut. We reached Langley around 9 in the a.m. That gave me enough time to change and grab some breakfast. As with every time I'd been here before, the food sucked. That's the way it is at most high-level federal installations. Anyone who can get security clearance wouldn't even think of working for what Uncle Sam pays the help. I killed some more time checking out secretaries, and finally made my way to the conference room with 10 minutes to spare. Which as it turned out was lucky, because they kept me cooling my heels for another 45 minutes. Gotta love the US government. Eventually in walked a couple of big wigs. You can always tell big wigs. They reek of success. Even their moles have class. They introduced themselves as Assistant Director Skinner. I so wanted to introduce myself as Agent Mulder, but knew better, and Agent Johnson. Obviously not his real name. Which means they were keeping secrets. Good morning, Agent. Cask, is it? Said Skinner, reading from a file. Yes, sir. I said, rising to greet them. Actually, it's Jack Kaskowski, but I settle for Cask. Good old-fashioned Polish name. Good. Let's get right to the point, shall we? Nah, I thought, let's mess around for a few hours first, maybe hit a strip joint or two. Johnson got up and turned off the lights. Skinner turned on an overhead projector. A picture appeared on a wall screen, designed to not look like a screen when the lights were on. A picture of a dark-skinned male with a beard and a turban appeared on the wall. "Are you familiar with Abdullah Muhammad al-Shirkan?" he asked. No sir, there was no intelligence in the prep file I received. He's a Saudi national. An Arab. A rich Arab. A very, very rich and well-connected Arab. Our intelligence shows he has some shady connections, possibly with terrorists. He might be funding them. He might be one of them. He might be a joker. We don't know. What we do know is, he says he's willing to be a go-between for us and some individuals in Mideast that we would really like to talk with. Skinner was dead serious, all business. Currently we have no way of verifying his intentions. If he's legitimate, then he could save us years of gathering intel. If he's not, he's free to lead us around by our noses for years. That is, as long as he throws us enough crumbs to keep our interest. I took in the information, knowing Skinner was far from done. He's planning a big party at a private estate in upstate New York next month. A big event to raise millions for charities around the world. Plenty of them right here in the good old USA. Nothing to raise any suspicion. We need someone the inside. Someone who can pass. Someone who can mingle, or at the very least, observe. And someone who can install your email virus on every computer in the location they find. I wasn't following. This is field agent duty. I'm a lab rat. Why are they telling me this? Assistant Director Skinner, anyone with that title just loves to hear it, continued by changing the picture on the wall. Up popped a woman. Older, but not too old. The first thing my male libido noticed was she had huge knockers. Bodacious tatas. Mangoes. Melons. Coconuts. Hooters. Yabahos. Skinner interrupted my train of thought by continuing. Martina von Breckenstein. She's old money, from Eastern Europe long before the Soviet Union. The Ruskies never had a chance to lay a finger on the family fortune. She has an invitation to said party. She and her family have things in their past that we've uncovered that she'd rather remain there. In return for plausible deniability, she's agreed to be kidnapped for the evening. So we can place an operative. If anything goes wrong, she was hijacked before the party, a messy crime affair, and she's off with mild suspicion. Now I got it. They probably wanted me to train a plant on how to install my email virus. The picture on the wall changed again. Another female. She closely resembled the first. She must be the field agent. Agent X. Skinner continued. We did a multi-agency search and came up with her. She'd been training for 2 months on the case. I couldn't help noticing that was in the past tense. Agent X was in a car accident 2 days ago. He paused for effect. It worked. Her car was broadsided by an attaché from the Saudi mission in D.C. They claimed diplomatic immunity and flew the bastard back home in 2 hours. She'll be fine, but she'll be in traction for about 3 weeks. We need a replacement and we need one fast. They both looked at me if they were waiting for me to say something. I hate when managers look at you like that. It's like, I missed something. Let's both save some time here and tell me what answer you want. The silence continued. Finally, I broke it. Yes, sir, what can I do to help? I hoped that would suffice. Skinner flicked the switch again. It definitely caught my attention. On the screen was a picture of Baroness whatever the hell her name was again. It quickly drew an outline around her head. Apparently, I was watching a computer rather than a simple projector. It then turned the outline into a line graph of her head minus the hair. Then it turned into a three-dimensional computer model. Skinner began again. It's our version of the software the FAA has been touting as the holy grail of airport security, facial recognition software. The only difference is ours works. It measures 150 different skull points and then constructs a 3D image for comparisons. Problem is, it's slow and bulky. No good for field work. But when you can use it, it's very reliable. Now I was confused again. Finding Agent X was easy. Too easy. Not enough work was done finding a backup in case of problems. I wasn't sure if I caught a sideways glance at Johnson or not. But he seemed rather contrite. Skinner went on, when Agent X went down, we did an emergency search of all compatible agents for the detail. We got no hits. We had them loosen the requirements, still no hits. Finally, in frustration, someone decided to turn off the gender field, for laughs. They ran the app, and came up with a near-perfect hit. He flicked the switch again on the overhead, and there was my file picture next to the German wench. He clicked again, and the modeling program took off, mapping my skull and hers. Within seconds I saw the computer generate 3D models of both our skulls, and then merge them. When the merger was complete, the resulting model was mostly green. A few yellow lines, and a fewer red ones. They both looked at me, as if waiting for me to say something. I really didn't like where this was going. Again I dived into the unknown. Sir, I'm not sure I follow. Skinner began again. Agent Kask, out of everyone in the federal government's employ, you most closely match von Breckenstein. Female agents included. Out of 150 skull points, you're an exact hit on 136. Including 11 of the most important 12. Hell, you're a closer match than the original female agent chosen to portray her. You two are so close, you could be long-lost twins. But sir, I'm a male. How could I pass as a woman? I mean especially this one. Not to be a sexist or anything, but sir, you must admit she is rather, well endowed. Skinner pushed a button and said, "Send in Dr. Stevens, please." We waited in silence for a few minutes when an older gentleman entered, the good doctor I assumed. Skinner introduced us to each other. Agent Kask, this is Dr. Stevens. Dr. Stevens, Agent Kask. We shook hands. Dr. Stevens is an agency specialist in cosmetic surgery and disguises. He assures me this won't be a problem. Then he motioned with his hand for the good doctor to take over. Agent Kask, the hardest part of this type of operation is the facial structure, height and weight. Which, you already have down. The other discrepancies can easily be handled with simple implants. Breast, thigh and buttocks. Loose a little of your gut with some liposuction and you're a perfect match. We do have to do a little work on your nose, but not much. And all this is 100% reversible. Man, this was like some bad dream. I don't do field work, especially in a bra and pantyhose. Think fast, rabbit. Sir, what about my Adam's apple? Women don't have one. Skinner was waiting for this one, I could tell. He clicked back to the original picture of whatever the hell her name was. He zoomed in on her throat, and I'll be damned if she didn't have an Adam's apple. He looked at me again and said, "That's what's been causing so damn much trouble finding another double. Something to do with her family's genes. You should see pictures of her mother." My head was spinning faster than a top. "Sir, I appreciate your offer, but I don't see how I could possibly pull this off. I haven't done any prep work, I don't know anything about the history." "Cask, that's not a problem. We still have the original prep team in place. And Agent X is ready, willing, and able to help you out. What we need is you to sign on board." I thought for a few minutes. I tried to think of something to say, but was speechless. The long silence was becoming deafening. Finally, after an eternity, Skinner got up, walked over to my side of the table and sat on it, in a rather chummy fashion. "Agent Cask, Jack is it?" "Yes, sir, Jack," I replied. He began again in earnest. "Jack, when I said this guy could either save us years, or else cost us years, I was serious. But those years are more than just time. Those years equal lives. Innocent lives. American lives. We need you to be in on this with us. I can order you. I can bring you up on charges if you don't. Hell, I can run you out of the service if you refuse. But Jack, I can't make you do this. This has to be your call. I know this sounds corny, but your country needs you." Aw shit. He gave me the goddamn Yankee Doodle speech. Shit. I hate that. I hate it because it always works on me. I really do love my country and I take this crap seriously. I thought for a few more minutes and then said, "Sir, I don't think I can pull this off." "Jack," he continued, "if you go in with that attitude, then it won't work. Don't worry, I'll make the final call whether to send you in or not. If I don't think you've mastered the part, then I'll pull the plug. But we need you to try your best. I spoke with the president on the matter this very morning. That's why we were late. He's very keen on your willingness." "Great, can they possibly make me feel more guilty?" Again I stalled. I just wanted this whole thing to go away. But it wouldn't. I knew it. So did Skinner. Again we all waited in silence. I was waiting for him to throw me a freaking lifesaver to bail, but he wouldn't. Finally I caved. "Sir, for my country, I'll do whatever I have to." He smiled a smile of relief. "Excellent choice, man, excellent. We want to get started as soon as possible. You're scheduled for surgery this afternoon at the Walter Reed Army Hospital in D.C. Whoa, I thought, wait a minute. Dr. Stevens jumped in. "We want you to have as much time as possible to acclimate to your new, how do I say it, body. 3 weeks isn't much time to learn the intelligence for the part. We can't have you tripping over your own, you know what I mean." "No, I guess we can't." Wonderful. What the hell did I just get myself into? With that, Skinner and Johnson, both extremely pleased with themselves, stood up, shook everyone's hands. Again, Skinner spoke. "Well then, I'll leave you in the capable hands of Dr. Stevens, and I'll be seeing you again shortly. Agent Cask, I thank you, your president thanks you, and most of all your country thanks you." The good assistant director handed me off to an agent. who handed me off to another agent, who handed me off to someone else, and on and on and on. Eventually, I ended up with a young guy who introduced himself as Tom. No last name was given, none was needed. He was big. In fact, huge. And he had the thickest Southern accent I'd ever heard. On the third try, I finally got, "Pleased to meet you, agent. I'll be your transport to Walter Reed Hospital." He seemed very good-natured. Something you don't come across very often in this business. He took my requests to repeat everything he said with a bright smile and a hearty laugh. I liked him immediately. He took me to an underground parking lot the size of the Grand Canyon. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, scooters, should I bet they even had skateboards. Eventually we ended up standing in front of an old army ambulance. It ain't exactly a NASCAR, but it'll get the job done. Inside was another gentleman dressed in an emergency medical technician uniform. He introduced himself as Joe as he handed me an army uniform. He motioned me to climb into the ambulance for some privacy, which I did. When I came back out, Tom also had changed into an EMT uniform. Tom tossed me crack salute, which I half-assed returned. I was never any good at military stuff. Joe explained I'd be making the trip as a patient. After the last agent was taken out, nothing was being left to chance. Tom climbed in behind the wheel, while Joe and I climbed in the back. Tom edged out of the parking spot. I wondered if he knew his way out of this cavern. Joe opened up a medical box and pulled out bloody bandages and turned towards me. Perhaps it was my look of horror that caused him to say, "Don't worry, it's not real blood, just a simple compound." He took my folded-up suit and placed it in the empty box. "Now what do you say to a little head trauma?" "Sounds good to me," I said, taking off my hat. He wrapped me fairly good. I could still see somewhat, and my nose was clear. The cabin suddenly filled with light, indicating we were finally above ground. Joe took a pair of surgical scissors and cut the right sleeve of my uniform and shirt up to almost my shoulder. Losing this much blood definitely could cause shock, so we'll need to keep you in plenty of fluids. He pulled an IV from a drawer, removed the needle and taped the end of the tube to my arm. "You guys ready back there? We're coming up on the exchange point." Tom yelled over the roar of the motor. "We're ready," Joe replied. "Here comes the pickup vehicle now." I sat up and saw an ambulance racing towards us, about a quarter-mile away, lights blazing. 3, 2, 1. "Yee-haw!" yelled Tom, and suddenly a huge explosion ripped apart a car on the side of the road ahead that I'd failed to notice. In less than an instant, the two ambulances passed. Their lights went out, our lights and siren went on, and Tom stomped on the gas pedal. I nearly fell on my ass as old ambulance rocketed forward. There was something pretty big under the hood out there. Looks can be deceiving. The sound of a rebel yell echoed throughout the truck. "My sincerest condolences on your accident, Lieutenant," humming. Tom continued yelling. "That was quite an accident you had back there. You've lost a bit of blood, but your wounds aren't nearly as bad as they appear. You'll be just fine after a day or two in the hospital, getting fat of that world-famous Army hospital cuisine." Joe had me lay down on the stretcher and strapped me in. When we hit the emergency room, keep quiet, keep still, and follow our lead. It was a short ride with Tom behind the wheel. You could tell he lived for this kind of thing. In no time we were slowing down to enter the emergency room parking. They hustled me out of the ambulance and into emergency. A nurse came up and began litany of questions to determine just what the hell was going on. Joe brushed past her, simply stating, "It's the army light from the car wreck." She gave a knowing nod and directed us to the last cubicle on the left. That had an ominous sound. As soon as we were all in, Joe closed the curtain. He hit button on a pager hanging from his belt and a secret door opened in the wall. That was cool. Out walked an army officer in a uniform exactly like the one I wore. As the last bandage came off me, the first one was going on him. Joe handed me my clothes and guided me to the door. Tom grabbed my hand for a vicious shake that rattled my teeth. Man, was I glad that guy was on our side. Once inside, the door closed and I was enveloped in silence. It was well lighted, but eerily quiet, considering the frenzy in the ER on the other side of the door. So I started following the hallway. It was the only way to go. At the end of the hallway there was a steel door. And a big soldier standing at attention in front of it. With a big gun. A very big gun. And he definitely looked like he knew how to use it. I sincerely hoped he was expecting me. He was. Agent Caskus. Cassilo. Agent Cask, yes. I interrupted. Right this way, sir, third door on the left. And with that he opened the door and saluted. I wasn't sure if it was the uniform, good training, or did I deserve a salute. Oh well, doesn't really matter anyway. So I went to the third door on the left. It was a conference room. And in it was Dr. Stevens, from the agency. And with him was several other doctor-looking types. Good afternoon, Agent Cask. Allow me to introduce you to your medical team. This Dr. Vikakis, anesthetist. Dr. Clifford, facial reconstruction and liposuction. Dr. Smithton, vocal cords. Vocal cords? Nobody said anything about vocal cords? Dr. Stevens continued without missing a beat. Dr. Rodriguez, implants, and lastly your physical therapist, Nurse Kruper. Holy shit! What a freaking babe! She looked like she stepped out of Babe Watch. I definitely would love to get physical with her, apply my own type of therapy. Even in her baggy whites, there was no missing those curves. Dr. Stevens began droning on again, interrupting my daydream. I miss more conversations because of my dick. I gave you a preliminary rundown on the procedures at Langley this morning. Now we'll explain the details. He motioned to one of them and said, Dr. Vikakis. The good doctor began speaking. Though none of the procedures alone would require putting you to sleep, I believe having them all done at the same time would put undue stress on you. Therefore, I strongly suggest we put you out for 2 days. You'll have numerous small lacerations, and this will allow your body 48 hours to heal, without any pulling on your stitches. Your medical file from the FBI has no indications of allergies. Have you ever had any problems with being anesthetized? None that I can remember. Just exactly what are you planning on doing to me? Relax, Agent Cask, said Dr. Stevens, with his best bedside manner smile. That's what we're explaining to you. Regardless of what you may have been told about Army and agency doctors, we're not going to do anything to you without your permission. This is America, not the old Soviet Union. I was still nervous, but that did relax me a little bit. Dr. Clifford picked up from there. Your eyes and chin are fine, but your nose needs to be fixed. Do you remember how you broke it? He asked. I never broke my nose, doctor, I said. I'm afraid you have, Agent. Sorry, no, Doc, I never broke my nose. He stood up, walked over to me and pulled a small mirror from his pocket. He held it up to my nose, and then with a pen he slowly traced a line from my eyes down the length of my nose. About an inch from the end, the pen moved slightly to the left. Holy shit, I did have a broken nose. It's quite common for young children, especially boys, to break their nose and not realize it. It doesn't always cause buckets of blood. That only happens in Hollywood. If you're fond of it, I can always put it back when your mission is over. I thought for a few more minutes and said, how about if I see if I like it before I tell you to put it back? That'll be fine. He took his seat, but continued speaking. The liposuction is a standard procedure. You can reverse that procedure yourself with a binge of hamburgers and beer. Even I got a chuckle out of that. Dr. Rodriguez picked it up from there. I'll be doing a series of 6 implants on your body. 1 for each breast, 1 for each buttock, 1 on each hip and 1 on each thigh. The breast and buttocks are standard implants. Nothing out of the ordinary there. The hip implants, while not common, are also routine. The thigh implants are a new technology. He turned on an overhead projector and I saw 2 3-dimensional outlines of a male body, front and back views. He clicked a button, and it was replaced by a picture showing the implants in green against the white body outlines. He pulled a pointer from his shirt pocket and walked over to the screen. It's based on the same technology as the standard implants, except of the size of the implants. Here you'll see how the thigh implants wrap around the entire leg, which requires the solution be injected at multiple points. Solutions injected, what do you mean? In a standard implant, he said. The container is inserted under the skin and then inflated. It means the insertion lacerations are much smaller than they otherwise would be. Okay, I got you. I was getting nervous again, now that we're actually getting down to the nitty-gritty. Dr. Smithton spoke next. Although it's not technically necessary to alter your vocal cords, the medical team thinks it may be a good idea. That way you won't need to concentrate on disguising your voce. There is a new technology in the field of voice disguise. She pulled a small envelope from her pocket and tossed it across the table to me. I opened it up and a tiny plastic clip fell into my palm. While you're under, we can place these clips on your vocal cords and, using a computer, adjust them to whatever frequency is deemed necessary. As long as they're removed within 45 days, the only after effects is a moderately sore throat for a few days. After 45 days, the clipped-off portion of the cord begins to die and the ends grow together, making the change permanent. You shouldn't need them any longer than 30 days. Do you want the procedure? I highly recommend it. I thought for a few moments then said, well, I guess you're the doctors, you know best. Excellent, she said with a smile. Then I turned to the lovely lady at the end of the table and asked, and what does Nurse Kruper have planned for me? She smiled and said, my job is help you get used to your new body. To feel comfortable in it. God, what a smile she had. So we'll be spending some quality time together? I added. I knew I shouldn't be trying to hit on her here and now, but I wanted to test the waters before I wasted time dreaming about her. Yes, you could say that, she replied with a grin. Yes. There is a God. Finally, Dr. Stevens started again, so I guess this is the grand finale. There is one more procedure we've been debating and want to present to you. There are many different projects going on in the Army and in the CIA. Many of these programs are confidential. Many also have offshoots. One program was an attempt to see if certain female hormones were increased in a woman's body, Could it be used to enhance interrogation procedures by making the subject highly emotional and therefore unstable? Great, I thought. Your tax dollars hard at work making bitchy women even bitchier. That project was terminated, but part of that project was to determine which hormones most affect emotions. An offshoot of that program developed a group of synthetic female hormones that affect the body, but not the emotions. These hormones have been thoroughly tested and are 100% safe. What they will do is give you a more feminine appearance, but not affect your male, for lack of a more clear term, your hardwired male brain. What are you saying? You want to shoot me up with female hormones? Are you people gonna actually turn me into a woman? This was getting way out of hand. Doctor, may I? It was the goddess. What was her name again? Kruper? I believe I am somewhat familiar with those of Agent Kask's persuasion. Perhaps I can explain. The good doctor deferred and the babe again spoke with me. I was having trouble paying attention to the words. She knew it, I could tell. She watched me watching her tits. Agent Kask, she began. There's more to being a woman than breasts and butts. It's not just the way you look. It's the way you move. The way you appear, the grace in your style. The way you hold yourself. The way you come across. Women are most definitely different from men. A woman that knows how to develop it has a certain presence. I'm sure you've experienced it yourself. When a classy woman enters a room, you feel compelled to turn and look before you've even noticed she was there. What Dr. Stevens is talking about is using chemicals to allow your body to more easily make that transition. Salma Hayek. That's who the hell she reminded me of. No wonder I was already in love. Okay. Technically, I was in lust. Same thing. Oh shit, I'm doing it again. I'm missing the important stuff. Bad penis, bad. Down boy. Dr. Stevens spoke up. The idea is to add these chemicals to your body. Allow them to help you. And then remove them. A couple of days on a prescription of testosterone and steroids, and you will most surely be your old self. I guarantee it. So when this is all done, I'll pretty much be myself, right? I asked the assembled round table. We see no permanent issues, that is correct, said old Doc Stevens. So when this is all done, I'll pretty much be myself, right? Dr. Stevens looked confused and said, we see no permanency issues, correct. Let's try this again. So when this is all done, I'll be my good old self, right? The babe smiled broadly, put her hand on the doctor and said, yes, you'll be pretty much your old self. Good. Let's get the ball rolling. I've got a lot of background work to do. So we all stood up and shook hands and they left me with Nurse Selma. Hey, I can dream, can't I? We made small talk as she escorted me to what apparently was a hospital underneath a hospital. I got checked in, under a false name. Somehow I imagine most people entered that way. I got my standard hospital gown, the kind that leaves your butt hanging out. What moron came up with these? Next I got a preliminary exam. Height, weight, blood pressure, I test. Then came the needles. They must have stabbed me a dozen times. I guess draining half my blood is their idea of putting me out for 2 days. I hadn't noticed with all the needles, the love of my life had slipped away. But she did say we'd be spending quality time in the very near future. My new guide was a very large, black male nurse. He just told me to come with him and avoided every attempt I made at conversation. That type always makes them nervous. We went into a shower hall. He told me to strip and get nice and wet. Which I did. This was just too much fun. Showering in front of a big black guy. Visions of Alcatraz dancing my head. Next he handed me a shower cap and said be sure to get all your hair put up. Then he gave me goggles and put some greasy stuff on my eyebrows. What the hell is this? How about some answers? He replied, very calmly, I don't ask questions, and I don't give answers. In this place the less you know the better off you are. Well, I could see the logic in that. They tell me to do something to a patient, I do it. But I will tell you what we're doing. I'm gonna spray you with what we call Meganair. It's gonna remove all your hair. Remove all my hair? What the hell for? Like I said, I don't ask questions and I don't give answers. Keep your eyes and your mouth closed. This stuff tastes nasty, and it burns like shampoo in your eyes. With that he picked up a canister that reminded me of spraying bugs in a garden. And then he coated me in green stuff. It won't hurt, but it will tingle quite a bit. This stuff will remove hair for up to 2 weeks. It stuns the follicles. I've got you penciled in for 10 days from today, and for 10 days after that. He was right, it felt weird. Like I had bugs crawling on me. In a couple of minutes he put down the spray. Let it work for a few minutes, then shower it off. When he gave me the nod, I turned on the shower and got a good rinse. Now I'm not particularly hairy to start with, but you should have seen all the hair in the drain. Make sure you get it all off. You don't want some on your head, or you'll get a bald spot. When he decided I was clean enough, he tossed me a towel and said, your gown is hanging up over there, I'll meet you outside. I passed a mirror as I reached for my gown and looked at myself. From the eyeballs down, I was completely hairless. It was strange seeing my cock and balls. They actually looked bigger. I'll bet Nurse Selma would be even more impressed. I got dressed, went out and was escorted by my talkative companion to a private room. He told me to lie down and relax. They'd be coming for me soon. Yeah. Right. Relax. Just before I go under the knife. After 20 minutes or so, Dr. Stevens and a different nurse came in. They were both in scrubs. He pulled a needle and I just about shit. Haven't you guys taken enough blood for one day? No, I'm not taking blood. This is a sedative. We're getting you ready for surgery. It's quite strong, you'll be asleep in no time. So I guess this is good night for now. I'll be seeing you, but you won't be seeing me for about 48 hours. And then he stabbed me. He was right. I was drowsy almost immediately. And then I closed my eyes. And the twilight of the night, as I like to call it. It's my favorite part. When the sun begins to make its first appearance. The darkness begins to fade just a little. The early birds begin their songs. The earliest workers are already at their task. The street sweepers are cleaning up the broken bottles and empty beer cans. The occasional bus or truck can be heard off in the distance. Garbage trucks banging the shit out of metal cans. I'm still in bed. Part awake, part asleep. One foot in both worlds. From here, I can sometimes dream. Not just any dream. But dream what I want. No longer a hostage to the deep sleep dreaming, nightmares, wet dreams, what have you. I command what I dream. An active, willing participant. I love it. I can be at the beach. Or in the arms of a lover. Visit an old friend, long since gone. Play with my best friend from childhood, my dog Phil. Or I can be in the middle of a party. Perhaps visit a place I know only from pictures. As long as I don't try to do anything that causes me to think too strenuously, like read a paper or a book, the world is mine. For a few more hours at least. Till the alarm clock drags back to the cruel reality of the present. That's where I was now. At least it felt like it. I was a bit tired. Tired enough to want to keep sleeping. But also awake enough where my mind was thinking just a little. But for some reason, I couldn't dream. Usually it's easy. The hard part is trying to reach this light sleep phase. So I tried to picture something in my head to dream about. But I couldn't. I tried to remember what happened recently. I drew a blank. The more I thought, the more awake I became. Kind of like pulling myself out of a fog. I felt stiff, sore, and hungry. I also felt something on my legs. And I felt something cutting into my shoulders. My throat was sore. My ass also felt funny. I tried to place the feeling. It reminded me of playing in the pool with my nieces and nephews out on the West Coast on my last vacation. Trying to sit my fat ass on a way too small inner tube. Where you have to balance it just right or over you flip over. Which is what I did most of the time. It's impossible when you've got a gaggle of children swimming up underneath you, tipping you over. But the kids love it. That was a nice thought. Maybe I could go back to sleep and dream about my last visit to my sister and her family in California. Too late. I'd thought too much as it is, and was waking up. My eyes were hard to open. That crusty stuff you get when you're sick. Which meant I'd been sleeping for some time. My throat was dry and sore. I didn't remember what the hell I did last night, but man, I must have drank like a fish. Scotch makes me feel like this sometimes. Like I'm in a fog. If you absolutely must have a hangover, I strongly recommend the type provided by Johnny Walker Black. 12-year-old Scotch. I sat up slowly, trying to focus my eyes. I felt a tugging on my shoulders and chest. When my eyes finally did focus, I realized I wasn't in my apartment. Where the hell was I? I scratched my head and felt a shitload more hair than I have. I felt something digging into my shoulders. It was some kind of strap. It was a bra strap. I was wearing a bra. I was wearing a bra? Shit. I was wearing a bra. Then it all came rushing back to me. I started to get out of bed slowly. I realized I had a drip for in my arm. I pulled it out and a drop of blood quickly formed. I felt nauseous. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I reached over to grab a tissue off the nightstand, and I damn near fell out of the bed. The momentum of these tits nearly carried me over the edge. I was going to have to be careful moving them around. With one arm holding them up, I grabbed a tissue and held it over the needle mark. Slowly, I stood up. I was wearing surgical support stockings. Thick white ones that held my legs firm. I carefully walked over to a mirror by the sink to get a look at myself. As I stood there, I was amazed by the sight. The simple hospital gown could not hide the large chest. chest? My chest. That pair of knockers was me. I stated to get a little dizzy, but did some deep breathing exercise I'd learned in training to calm myself. I took another look. I had bandages on my nose, and my eyes were a touch purple. Probably from the nose job. I had a full head of hair. Blonde, down to my shoulders. I tugged on it. It hurt, just a little. Must be a hair weave. My ass was pretty good-sized. And so were my hips. On closer inspection, I had an array of small bandages all over my body. Well, okay, not all over. But enough. It must be where they put the implants in. My throat hurt and didn't have the guts to speak. So I stayed quiet. I looked at myself from various sides in the mirror. And I'll be damned if I didn't look like a woman. These guys were good. Maybe too good. I gently lifted the edge of the gown and said a prayer as reached for my dick. It was still there. I gave thanks. I checked again, my balls were also intact. I'm definitely going to start going to church again. After a few more minutes, I slowly made my way back to the bed. It felt strange the way these boobs pulled and swayed back and forth. I couldn't imagine what it would be like without a bra to keep them somewhat in place. As I crawled under the covers, my mind swam with this new information. I had actually agreed to all this. It wasn't a bad dream, it was real. I tried to get some more sleep, but I couldn't. I'd been out too long. I was awake and that was that. As I lay there, my right hand slid down the gown. I reached underneath and searched for my dick again. Yes. It was still there. It gave me a little peace of mind. What the hell was I doing here? I'm not a field agent. I'm certainly no master of disguise. I've spent my post-puberty life hunting down women for sport. And now I was going to pretend to be one? I couldn't pull this off. What if I forget and stood to piss? What if I fart and burp? What happens if I get an itch and scratch my ass? Manners have never been my strong point. That's why I'm a lab rat. It doesn't matter what my manners are. Okay, Cask, get a hold of yourself. I squeezed my dick again, felt my sack. I'm still me. A trained agent working for the FBI. All I need to do is make some small talk, hack a few computer systems. And then get the hell out. I don't need to be the belle of the ball. While I was laying there, I heard a female voice clear a throat. I looked up and saw Nurse in the doorway staring at me. You know I'm the one who decides when your four comes out. Are you trying to put me out of a job? I glanced over and saw the hanging tube. It had made a puddle on the floor. Sorry, I said and was startled by the sound of my voice. It was raspy and croaky, but it was definitely a few octaves higher. It hurt some, but not too bad. I'll let it slide this one time, she chuckled, walking over and clipping off the flow in the tube. She checked my arm where the needle had been, and pulled a Band-Aid from her pocket. As she put it on my arm, she said, "You have to be careful with these things. You could get a nasty infection. Not to mention, without checking your chart, you could still be low on fluids. You've been sleeping for the last couple of days." She got up and looked at the chart hanging from the bottom of the bed. She read for a few minutes and said, "It looks like you can do without it. The note here says to notify Dr. Stevens immediately when you wake. I'll give him a page." In the meantime, would you like something to eat? In my raspy, high-pitched voice I said, yes, please. Okay, I'll have something sent up. It'll probably be Jell-O or soup or something light like that. Just till your stomach comes back online. I nodded a thank you, and she smiled and left. Soon enough another nurse brought a small tray to the room. She put it down on the table thingy they have in hospitals that roll and fit over the bed like a desk. Jell-O, tea, and oatmeal. Yum. I ate it and drank it, and nearly heaved it back up. So when my stomach settled, I started in again, much slower. After a while, Dr. Stevens entered the room. With some bullshit small talk, he took my blood pressure, checked my eyes, ears, and throat. Temperature too. But fortunately not up my ass. I was saved a modicum of dignity. I think. I'd like to keep you under observation for another day or two, Jack, he said. I'd also like you to get out of bed occasionally. To use the bathroom. Feel free to walk around the ward. We need to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. But please, stay put in this ward. This is the restricted ward. Don't ask personal questions of the staff or other patients. They're here for a reason, just as you are. Other than that, you're no longer officially chained to this bed. He packed up his gear. I was meeting Assistant Director Skinner when I was paged. He asked me to drop off a package for you. Some reading material, I believe. There is a private safe over in the closet, he said, pointing to a small door on the other side of the room. You can set the combination yourself. Skinner said to be sure I made clear this is highly sensitive material. And if the seal is broken, which it's not, you're to report me immediately. Nice. Like I'm gonna rat on the only man who turned me back into my former pumping palace. With that we shook hands and he was on his way. I couldn't help noticing how limp-wristed he was. Not all like when we first met. I wondered if it had anything to do with my looks. I checked out the safe, set the combination, made sure it was secure. Then I waddled back to the bed and opened my package. It hadn't been tampered with. The first thing I saw was a note stating just that, from Skinner. If it was tampered with, call him immediately on a secure line. So much for trusting our teammates. Inside the wrapper was a file stamped most secret. Must be from our British friends. Our mates across the pond. I always get a kick out of that. Most secret. As opposed to what almost secret? It was the file on our little gal, then one I was to pose as. I got up and locked the door. Don't need any prying eyes. And I wondered if I would ever get used to wearing tits. It seems whatever I tried to do, I had these huge things in the way. What a pain in the ass. When I walked, they swayed. When I lay on my back, they flopped all over my chest. When I leaned forward, they pulled my chest down. And don't even get me started on trying to piss standing up. It's a good thing my dick is huge, or else I wouldn't even be able to see it. But I digress. I climbed back into bed. I tried to make my ass somewhat stable. But it wasn't easy sitting on this thing. Kind of like sitting on some balloons. I opened up the file and glanced through it. Name, Martina von Breckenstein. Big family. Several brothers and sisters. Each one uglier than the one before. And I'll be damned if every woman in the photographs didn't have an Adam's apple. There were plenty of details, names, dates, places, but I was just scanning for now. Great, an opera fan. I hate opera. I'd rather fuck a goat than listen to it. I hope they weren't expecting me to become a freaking fanatic. Art appreciation. Charitable giver. Expensive tastes. I like that. Likes fine clothes, fancy foods and good wine. Partial to the Swiss Alps for skiing. Skiing? How the hell could she ski with a set of jugs like this? I have a hard time bending over. From all the various snapshots, she seemed like a conservative dresser. That's good, I don't need to worry about cleavage. As if I wasn't self-conscious enough as it was. Then something caught my eye. Holy shit! Now I know what they had on her. It was a picture of her in a dominatrix outfit whipping the ass off some naked guy. She had pretty nice legs for a gal her age. Black stockings and garter belt peeking out from a leather miniskirt. I hope it's not that kind of party they expect me to go. I looked closer at her face. It was a bit out of focus, obviously taken from some distance. But still I could tell she seemed enraptured by the situation. Her face had a scary look, of someone at least temporarily insane. Wild flashing eyes. The mouth curled into a snarl. There were some pretty heavy marks on the guy's ass and thighs. She was really getting into it. Bizarre. After a few hours of browsing, I closed the file and secured it in the safe. I walked over to unlock the door, and just as I got there, I had a knock. I opened it up and it was, oh, what was her name, Nurse Selma Hayek. My cock jumped. She looked me in the eyes. They were bright and smiling. "Good evening," she exclaimed. "I was hoping to find you awake. I have something for you." She tried not to stare, but she eyed me up and down quite a bit. "Those doctors do some job, don't they?" "I guess so," I muttered with my female voice. "I have something for you," she said again as she pushed past me into the room. She put a package on the bed and waited for me to open it up. "And I didn't get anything for you." I joked. Damn. How the heck am I supposed to impress her with my manliness when I sound like a cocktail waitress? "Oh, don't worry, it's not a gift or anything. It's some clothes for when we begin our sessions. Can't very well do PT in a hospital gown, now can you?" I opened the package and inside were a bunch of women's gym clothes. Leotards, tights, spandex pants, jog bras, socks and sneakers. You can pick out whichever you feel more comfortable in. Try them on when you get the chance and see which gives you the best, support. If you need some pointers with the tights, let me know. I'll be happy to help. I blushed. Here's the babe I wanted to screw so bad my balls ached. And she was offering to show me how to put on pantyhose. She must have noticed the way I felt because she put her arm on my shoulder and gave me a pat. "Don't worry, it's perfectly natural to feel confused and out of place. That's why I'm here. Looks like you'll need some help with your hair and makeup too." I was stunned. Hair? Makeup? All kinds of little things that I never thought about before started popping into my mind. Beauty salons, fingernails, matching shoes. Man, I was really starting to feel overwhelmed. "Easy there," she said, putting my arm around me. "It may be the hormones kicking in. They haven't started me on it yet. I haven't had any medication since I woke up." I told her. It's an implant, she said, lifting my left arm. She showed me a slightly larger band-aid than the rest, on the inside of my left upper arm. Time released. When it's all used up, it's all gone. They're not going to mess you up much, but it will have an effect. Great, this just keeps getting better. Now my system is running on PMS. And no one bothered to tell me. Come, sit on the bed, she said as she gently steered me back to bed. Pushing the clothes out of the way, we sat down together. Looks like no one's bothered to clean you up yet either. My guess is you're not sure what to do. She leaned over and opened up the nightstand drawer. She pulled a small plastic case out of it and retrieved a hairbrush. Then she began to brush my hair. Can you believe it? She started grooming me. And I liked it. It felt good. Nice. I felt a bit ashamed that I hadn't done it myself earlier. It never occurred to me. She brushed me out completely, then went through it again. It was very soothing. I worked my way through nursing college as a beautician. I can give you all kinds of tips. Perhaps the big brass didn't think of everything after all. Yes, I'd like that, I said. Now I know why a dog looks like it does when it's getting brushed. I felt like drooling a bit myself. And not just because this gorgeous creature was lavishing so much attention on me. When she finished, we went into the bathroom and she showed me how to wash up and put my hair up out of the way. We both agreed it was probably too soon to start putting on makeup. So she left me some stuff to work with. Not sure what it was, some small metallic, bullet-looking cases, some small bottles with different shades of red and pink in it. And some small round cases. I felt foolish. I mean, I had sisters and a mother. And the women I dated had all used this stuff over the years. But I guess I could never really be bothered to pay attention to what exactly it was. She said she had to go, and promised to return tomorrow. Tomorrow? I realized I had no idea what time it was. She said we'd work some more on grooming, makeup, and maybe even a little of the physical stuff. How to walk and sit properly. Oh man, this was going to be hard. I'd have to actually worry about how I sat. Then she was off with flash of the wonderful smile. And I was alone again. I searched around and eventually found a clock in the nightstand. It was late, 10:30 in the p.m., as Archie Bunker used to say. I was a bit tired, even though I'd just slept for 2 days. But I still had some steam. I started looking at the clothes she brought me. Leotards. Tights. Jog bras. I'd loved watching women wear this stuff. Shit, I'd eat my lunch in the park sometimes so I could check out the women jogging by dressed in it. Now I was going to have to wear it. I was absolutely sick to death of this stupid hospital gown. Walking around with one arm holding my boobs and the other keeping the back closed. I figured the pants were a good start. I picked up a pair of stretch pants. They didn't look big enough to fit. But of course, that would be the definition of stretch. Now I'd worn bike shorts in the past. Particularly when I'm out riding my bike, trying to attract the attention of potential, future ex-girlfriends. So I had some idea what I was doing. But by the time I got them up to my bionic thighs, I was in uncharted territory. I had to pull, and push, and squeeze, and cajole, and lay down the law, and then compromise some more. When I got to my new and improved ass, I was actually sweating. Note to self, next time Nurse Selma offers to help with clothes, accept wholeheartedly. Finally, me and the pants compromised. I got them on enough so they weren't yanking on things that shouldn't ought to be yanked on. I picked up the jog bra. How in the hell was this tiny thing going to hold these melons? I wasn't sure, but I'd have to find out one way or another. I took the gown off completely and got my first real look. Okay, so it wasn't a real look. I still had on this massive bra. It reminded me of one of my aunts when I was a kid. The sucker was huge. Obviously government issued. From years of experience in removing them, I had the back latches open in seconds. I still got it. When removed the body armor, I got my first real look at myself. These things were huge. I'd have loved them on one of my conquests. On me? It was an entirely different story. I'd never really thought about tits before, other than how great they feel when I buried my face in them. But how they felt to the woman who had to carry them around. I touched them. I felt them. I rolled them around in my hands. They felt real enough. But they felt different on the receiving end. The only time I've ever actually played with my own nipples was trying to make women laugh, Austin Powers style. But I just had to try. I gave my nipples a tweak. Nothing. No jolts of electricity like you read about in Letters to Penthouse. My back was beginning to hurt a bit from the strain of these suckers, so I tried to put on the jog bra. It went on easy enough like a t-shirt, but when I got to the yabahoos, I was again at war. How the hell did women do this stuff? Sure, it looks great for guys, but what a pain in the ass. More pulling and tugging and wrestling and I got it over the jugs. Then I spent another 5 minutes getting them settled in, so nothing was tugging or pinching. I went over to my mirror and took a look. Interesting. I filled out the spandex pretty good. Actually better than pretty good. I stood there with hands on hips, legs slightly spread, like the chicks at the gym. The only thing wrong was the bulge in my pants. Anxiety returned. I reached down and rearranged issues as best I could. Another look showed me as passable. I decided to take a stab at it. I ventured out into the ward. I had my spandex. I had my slippers. My hair was up. What the hell? I was told not ask questions, so no one should be asking me any personal questions. I peeked out the door. It was quiet. It was late. I'm just another anonymous patient, like everyone else here. I did a few moderately paced laps around the nurses' station. I passed a few nurses. They smiled. Looked me in the eyes. I had no idea if they knew what I really was. If they did, they didn't let on. I passed a few male nurses, or whatever they were. Most looked at my tits and ass, and only made eye contact at the last possible moment. I had to wonder. Was I like that too? It felt strange. Strange to have someone size you up on a purely sexual, physical scale. I knew what they were doing. It was so obvious. But they smiled like I hadn't a clue what they were doing. They seemed so shallow. Did I come across like that? If I acted the way these guys did I repulse women the same way these guys repulsed me? It confused me even more. I hoped it wasn't the hormones kicking in. After about 20 minutes of slow walking, I began to feel really tired. I didn't want to overdo it, so I went back to my room. I made sure the safe with the most secret file was secure. I changed back into my gown and climbed into bed. I tried to clear my head of the millions of stray, random thoughts. But I couldn't. I had to deal with some of them. I'd come this far, I was in for the long haul. But I'd bitten off far more than I could chew. This was going to be tough. The spy part of the work, I thought, was already more than I was trained to handle. I'd have to work at that. But so was all the baggage that came with being a woman. Hair, makeup, posture, clothes, pantyhose? Fuck. Well, I'd bought in because I wanted to do something to help my country. Not just good old USA. I'd bought in for something bigger. Democracy. This country is more than just Hollywood and Washington. It's more than just USA Today and Entertainment Tonight. The Super Bowl is more than new commercials and the halftime crap that the network crams down my throat. This idea behind this country is far bigger than the fruited plains. My great-grandparents came to this country over 100 years ago. They came because the countries they lived in wouldn't let them do what they wanted to do. Poland, Slovakia, Lithuania, they forced people to be what the kings or princes wanted them to be. Or regulated them because of what their ancestors did. Here, they had the opportunity to be what they wanted to be. If they looked at a job and said I could do it better, in America, they could give it a shot. There was no guarantee it would work. But at least you got a shot at it. And that was a lot more than they had in the old country. Here, someone could call you a stupid Pollock and say it would never work. But they couldn't stop you from trying. At least not legally. You got your shot. And if you failed, you could try again. And again. And again. Till you got it right. Or till you proved yourself to be the loser they said you were. But at least you could try. You had the right. Not the privilege, but the right. In other countries, they'd tell you you couldn't even try because of something your great-great-great-great-great-great-father did. Over here, I'm looking at you, what can you do? And that was something special. Really. Democracy can be found in other countries. And it didn't start here. We don't have a copyright on it. But we've managed to take it to a new level. We made it the law of the land. Democracy isn't pretty. It's pretty ugly as a matter of fact. But still. A country where it doesn't matter where I came from, but rather where I'm headed to. I decided I was going to go for it. In the big picture, no one would even know what I did, what I achieved, or even how hard I tried. All that matters is the effect. And I was going to do my goddamn best. God bless America. We're far from perfect. But we're giving, at least we've got the guts to give it a shot.